Welcome to the fictional town of West Mill, New York, one of the communities on my HO scale layout that has a Penn Central theme and also includes my freelanced Kingsport and Western Railroad. West Mill has a lot of industries, including Salmonella's Auto Salvage and the Canton Box Company. Also the sprawling Empire Grain Complex and a car float operation for interchange with other railroads. It has a small but thriving downtown area, and at the north end of town is this tunnel bore, which is a great place to watch some train action. West Mill is also the home of some very hopeful baseball fans. Well, if you saw my previous video, Railfanning at Kingsport, you know that at the end of the video we climbed aboard this KP&W RDC so we could take the trip to the other side of the layout and do some rail fanning at West Mill. So here it is, coming through town, passing Empire Grain in the background. In the foreground coming up is the float yard for the car float operation. That's the float master's office there, made of an abandoned passenger car, and the utilitarian commuter station at West Mill. We're going to start our rail fanning by hiking over to the car float and watching the unloading of a barge that just came in with the tugboat Robert H. The power for today that will haul those cars off the barge is Kingsport and Western's SD9 number 890, painted in the newer black and orange scheme. By the time we get to the car float, the work has already started. 4 covered hoppers have been pulled off the float already, 2 from either side to maintain balance. The SD9 has to do a back and forth move here. It goes down a couple hundred feet, crosses a nearby street, and it'll reach a turnout just to the south of here, and then back the train up on the yard lead to the float yard storage yard. The 4 covered hoppers are spotted separately on this track, and they'll eventually be transferred over to Empire Grain later. Meanwhile, on the north end of town, there's a B&O coal train rolling through, headed by a pair of F7s in that classic old B&O scheme. Here in the early 70s, we don't get to see that scheme very much anymore, so local rail fans are delighted to watch this train go by. The coal train is the result of a recent agreement between the Kingsport and Western and Penn Central and the B&O that allows the B&O trackage rights in the Kingsport division to bring in 2 coal trains a week. The train picks up speed as it goes by WM Tower and the rusted automobiles in Sal's salvage yard as the train hurries its way to Williams Yard in Kingsport. Now that the main is clear, SD9 890 is able to resume work, leaves the yard, and is returning to the car float. Whoops, looks like work's going to be delayed a little bit because there is a power run coming through from Williams Yard to Selkirk Yard. A number of EMD units are roaring through town. Coming up close behind the power run is KP&W's SW1500 switcher number 34, which is going to take responsibility for eventually transferring that cut of 4 covered hoppers to Empire Green. So here's the situation as we hear SD9 890 idling away. We have the 4 covered hoppers in the background, and we have 6 boxcars that still need to come off the car float. SD9 890 at work. If you like diesel sounds, turn up the volume. The boxcars are set out in the yard. They'll eventually be picked up by a transfer run to Kingsport. Well, we return now to the tunnel bore at the north end of town, and we see GP9 number 7175 pulling the short maintenance of way train that we saw leaving Kingsport in the video Railfanning at Kingsport. We really weren't sure what it was assigned to do, but apparently its mission was to rescue a couple of hoppers loaded with coal. Actually, this scene is a little tribute to the film work of Emery Goulash, whose work has been featured in the Green Frog series about the Penn Central Railroad. There's a nice scene in one of the videos in which a maintenance of way train is pulling 2 hopper cars that derailed from a coal train that passed by in a previous scene. So, presumably, these 2 hopper cars are rescued from the B&O coal train that we saw earlier in this video. We are watching Penn Central train KM13, Kingsport to Mayfield, roll through West Mill. This is a local that will stop here at West Mill to pick up those 4 covered hoppers at Empire Grain. Here's a great view of the train action, but it also shows a glaring continuity error. So those of you who enjoy finding errors in movies and videos, here's your chance to spot the continuity error. In the meantime, we're going to let KM13 do its work. It separates from the rest of the train and moves ahead onto the Mayfield branch. And then it's going to back up into Empire Grain and pull those 4 hoppers. Moving ahead now, it's going to back up and reconnect with the train. And once all air pressure checks and everything else have been done, the train rolls out of West Mill and heads to Mayfield Yard. Well, now that the spur at Empire Grain is clear, our switcher number 34 is good to go, and it pulls the 4 covered hoppers out of the holding yard at the float yard. It'll do a couple of back and forth moves and will find itself moving on to the branch line to Mayfield so that it can back up on the spur at Empire Grain and set out those 4 covered hoppers. There's a couple of home road cars there, KP&W cars. Well, switcher number 34 is heading back to the float yard. We'll talk to the folks at the yard office and see what the next assignment might be. So if you haven't noticed the glaring continuity error, it's the fact that those boxcars on the float yard should not be there. Anyway, thanks as always for watching. I've enjoyed making it. I hope you enjoyed watching it.